name and the clan and who you are.
Okay.
Present yourself.
My name is Joe Diome, and my Mohawk name is Rarunenuha, and I'm of the Bear Clan. I live here in Ganawage of the Mohawk Nation.
All right. This is really, a little bit embarrassing, but all right. So, concerning the subject that we are, there are different sort of departments which are spiritual, social, and even a little bit like political. And the main thing was when we started was that the Mohawks, or some people of the Iroquois League, would be the people who would tell about the social relationships and the society most. And I was wondering if you might tell a little bit about the history of how the society was formed in your culture, and maybe about the peacemaker and this kind of thing, how it originated, all this togetherness and the society, how it was formed and why it was formed.
Before the peacemaker, as you mentioned, came, there were 5 nations, and they lived in close proximity to each other, mainly along the Mohawk River and across the New York State area. And prior to the Confederacy being formed, we were all fighting with each other. And you might say that we had forgotten our duties and responsibilities that was given to us by the Creator.
Would you first, before we go into this new situation, could you tell us about the legends of how you were living before? Because that time is also very important, and sort of because it was even more spiritual before you started separating in a way. What are the legends talking about that?
Well, it's unclear as to through our legends, as you call it, as to our origins, but from what the anthropologists have understood through their studies is that we all originated from a certain area in Middle Eastern United States, around North Carolina, South Carolina, amongst the mound builders. And thousands of years ago, we began to migrate north, and as we migrated north, we split up into different groups and eventually settled and occupied different areas of New York State. And it was not just the 5 nations that were formed from this common ancestry. It was the Hurons, most of the people that speak the same, relatively same language, the Iroquoian language. So the Cherokees are from the same group. The Hurons, tobacco people, some of them are extinct. But basically the 5 nations survived. And later on, the Tuscarora came from North Carolina to join us, who are also an Iroquoian people. But once they did become established in their own nations, wars and feuding existed, and very bloody feuds existed. Blood wars. And the time frame is unimportant as to when the peacekeeper came. It's just important that he did come. And it is said that he came with, he was sent by the Creator to create peace amongst us. And he went to the Mohawks first because the Mohawks were the most notoriously ferocious people, the most warlike, and also about the least in numbers. And he spoke to one leader, who was obviously a leader, and talked to him for a long time and finally convinced him of the wisdom of adopting what we call today the Great Law. And what it was a way of governing ourselves so that everyone had an equal say in our destiny. So once he convinced the Mohawks, then they went to see the next most ferocious people, which was the Onondagas. And he went to see, no, I take that back. He went to see all the other nations, and he went to the Onondagas last. And the last person was to see was Adodarho, who was, they called him a sorcerer and a cannibal. And he was said to have snakes in his hair. And so it was Aiwata from the Mohawk Nation who convinced Adodarho to join. And they say that he combed the snakes out of his hair. So what they had to offer Adodarho was not that they had any more power than he already had. Any more power could not satisfy him. What they offered him was the most prestigious position in the Confederacy, and that would be as the Speaker. And that was what, among other things, that convinced him to stop the ways that he had been used to and join in the Confederacy. So the Confederacy was formed, and the laws that are described in the Great Law were adopted by all 5 nations. And really, a lot of the laws are an affirmation of pre-existing let's say, I wouldn't call them laws, but instructions that the Creator had given us through our ceremonies, which we all had, through our respect for the land, which we all had, but we had forgotten.
Oh yes. So the situation was that the rituals were sort of forgotten in this situation.
I would say they were forgotten. They were not paid attention to, and so he refocused attention on the rituals and the ceremonies and our duties and our responsibilities.
Yeah. Is it a little bit like today actually what is happening, that there's a much more focus on the spiritual sense, again, even that there is also this political sense, there's much more focus on the spiritual sense also at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's what it is. It's the spirituality is again catching up to the political. We've again become to realize that we can't do one without the other. And the spirituality is a process that's been going on now for about 20 years. This renewal of awareness of spirituality and our own, what belongs to us. And it strengthens our political will also. And you'll find in most cultures in North America that the politics and the spirituality can't be separated. They are intertwined. And we don't believe in division of church and state.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
So, how would you describe the laws or the instructions, which were of somewhat as general nature, of how to exist together? What would you say were the main principle of existence among the human beings? What are these general instructions?
Basically, it was a requirement by the Creator that we honor Him by giving Him thanks for the all that He's given us in order to exist, and through the creation stories, and it tells us what our connection is with the land. Basically, what it is saying that we are no better than any other creature, and we are no less than any other creature, and we give back to whoever provides for us. If we take an animal in the hunt, we have to give thanks to the animal. If we take a medicine from the bush, we have to give something in return in the way of an offering of tobacco, so that it's always a reciprocal arrangement between us and the other beings. Basically, that's
actually quite simple.
Yeah,
very simple.
Very simple.
In that sense, yeah. Oh, all right. Yes. So we go on.
But I think what I could tell you, our society is matrilineal, meaning that the family or the clan is passed down through the mother. The women hold a very high positions in our culture. Men and women are equal, but they have separate responsibilities, and they have separate duties, and they also have separate regard for each other. The reason for the way that we perceive our women is because women and the earth are one and the same. The earth is our mother, and the earth also nourishes us in the same way that a woman does. The woman gives birth to us and nourishes us. And also, she's the one who teaches us from childhood up to the time that the men begin to take over your education. And that time in our culture is of about 12, 13 years old when you begin to be taken on the hunts and whatever. Of course, that's changed today. It's not exactly the same anymore because of the confusion caused by the white education system, which we're now trying to overcome by reintroducing into our own education system more cultural aspects of our life into the classroom, so that the children can begin to appreciate the reasons why women are regarded much more differently in our culture than they are in white society. I think white society is just now beginning to realize that women should be equal. And we had been living that way for a long time.
How would you describe the state and position of men regarding to the woman? Because, as you know, in white societies, both sexes have very much lost their meaning. So the women don't know what it means to be a woman, and men don't know what it means to be men in white societies. I mean, very, very often it is like this, so that there's so much confusion about this. So what is the Mohawk or the native view of what are the actual positions of men and women?
It's basically the same as it was before, in that women have the responsibility for rearing our children. That's never changed. In our society, women have the authority to appoint our chiefs. Actually, they hold the titles, and they will nominate people for chiefs, and the people as a whole will ratify if they want that person to be chief. But they put it in the hands of the women because the women rear the men, and they can tell who has the character and the fortitude to achieve that position.
But didn't you tell me that the Warrior Society had a responsibility for teaching the young?
Yeah, but I'm not up to that point yet.
Oh.
I'm still talking about the women.
Okay, let's talk about a little more about women.
I'd like to say
This is
something about women.
This is definitely some sort of a new coming of women in white society too, but it has to be maybe adapt to maybe your ideas a little bit more.
I would like to say that women are nothing without men, just as men are nothing without women. And all of this feminist attitude and women's liberation, to me, is a waste of energy and time and money. It's something that is for only non-native people, non-native women, because our men, our societies, our whole attitudes give me all of the equality I ever need or want. They give me all of the power I need or want. They give me anything that I need or want if I can fulfill my expectations of it. That I think is very important, that other people understand that we have no feminist movement because we have no need of it.
So what would be your idea or your concept of the woman? How does a woman differ actually from a man, and what is the sort of what could you say, the position and task and the function of a woman?
The basic function of a woman to my understanding as a girl going through puberty from my mother, is that I was put on earth to carry a child, to bring forth life. Okay? Everything else evolves around that responsibility, that right, that capability. And that is something that is very sacred, very special, and for this reason I must respect the body that houses my life, because that body is responsible for creating new life. The differences, other differences, political, educational, all of those differences are incidental because we don't know yet how to separate that from life.
So what would you like to comment to anything about this, the idea of woman? If you could say a cosmic idea
Well,
of woman.
we have very specific division of powers as far as men and women are concerned, and the women, as I explained, had the authority to appoint the chiefs, and they also have the power to depose them through the clan system. The clan mothers had ownership of the titles, which they conferred upon worthy people. The other duties that they had was taking care of the gardens, because it was their responsibility. Being people that give forth life, they were the ones that naturally would take care of the nurturing of the fields. That's not to say that the men didn't take part in it either. The men basically took part in the heavy work, which meant clearing the field. Their role was basically destructive. So they would destroy the trees in certain respect. They would take the trees down, and the trees would not be wasted to be used for firewood. But they would clear the fields, do all the heavy work, and the women would be in charge of taking care of the sowing the seeds and weeding the gardens and stuff like that. But when it came down to harvest and heavy work had to be done, well, the men would take part in it also. And also was the women and the clan mothers who had charge of the fields. They would say which family would have what field, and that was their field to take care of. And they had quite a lot of control over the community, because the men were mostly away on hunting expeditions or war parties or whatever. Not much changed from today either, because the business of construction and ironwork took our men away, and for like a week or two at a time, they would come back and see their kids, and then the women would be here taking care of the community. And it was only until the ironworking business kind of died out that all these men came back and created havoc in here, because they tried to take over.
Yes.
They lost their whose place it was.
So the balance was in a way.
Yeah. So now, at the same time that ironwork trade died down, this renewal of spirituality is also taking place, so that there was a clash for a time, but now it's beginning to realize that beginning to reacquire the knowledge that made a balance in our communities.
I think with
Excuse me.
hunting as an example,
Unbalanced now.
with hunting as an example, the men went out and killed the animals, the large animals. Women would kill rabbits and small birds, but the men would provide the large animals and bring them to the women, who would then prepare them for food, and in that way take their part of the responsibility of the hunting. And I think it's important that people realize that each has its place, and neither one is less important than the other.
I heard something explained about the cosmological aspect of a woman, which was to do with the moon aspect. And this, and something to do like the masculine aspect with the sun more. So could you explain that?
Yeah.
And what is it? What is this based on?
It's based on the creation, which is a rather long story, and I'm not too sure I get it right every time. But very quickly, the way the creation took place in our culture might be a little bit different in hers. Was that up in the sky world, there was this woman who was pregnant, and being a young pregnant woman, she was very curious and maybe mischievous. And in the sky world, there was this tree. I suppose you could call it the tree of life or whatever.
So, just to be more sure, could this be described as cosmological entities, or like what they call in different cultures, like heavenly beings, like this what you are talking about, the tree of life? And
I can't say.
So they are ancient stories told, retold, and
they're told to children, but they're also in the stories. There's a lot of truth to what's in there, and it's the abstract ideas that are in the stories that sinks into the child, which he owns by the time he's an older person. And in retelling the stories to his children, begins to reinforce the duties and the responsibilities that you learn from these stories. So this woman uproots this tree, and when she uproots the tree, there's a hole in the sky world, and she looks down in the hole, and way down below there's water. But in the hole, there's seeds and whatever that have been growing. And she reaches down and grabs a few of the seeds. But as she's reaching down, she falls. She falls through the hole, and she's falling down a long way. And the winged creatures see her falling. And they decide to have a council and decide what to do about this, because they didn't think it would be good to have her fall into the water. So they fly up and they catch her. So then they put her, where do they take her? They put her on the turtle's back. This happened to be a giant snapping turtle. So they lay her on the back of the turtle, and she's dying. And so what they decide to do is to send a creature down to the bottom of the water and bring up earth for her to live on. So several creatures in turn try, but they can't. Either they run out of breath and they can't make it. So finally, a muskrat is the creature that makes it down to the bottom, comes up with a handful of dirt, and they place the dirt on the woman. And she gets up and she keeps walking around the turtle's back, and that little speck of dirt gets bigger and bigger, and this is how if you want to call it, North America was created. And to this day we call it Turtle Island. So she gives birth, this woman, and she gives birth to a daughter, and the woman dies, and the seeds that she had taken with her when she fell were placed on her chest. And when these seeds took root in her chest, what grew out of there were what we call the three sisters, and they call them the providers, the corns, beans, and squash. And this daughter grows up, and she meets a young man, and nobody knows where this young man came from, or how he appeared, or who he was. Some say that he was the West Wind, and she gets pregnant, and she gives birth to twins, and she names one of them Tariawagam, who was born in a natural way, and the other one she calls Sawiskoro, was born from her armpit. And as the kids grew up, they fought with each other. They were very, very jealous of each other. And the older twin, who was favored by the mother, was gifted with the ability to create, and he created all the good things that would people the earth. And he also created the human beings. And Tariawagam is also referred to whenever we say Sungwayadism in our language. It means the creator. So it's Tariawagam who is being referred to when we talk about the creator. And Sawiskoro is the mischievous one who creates all the trouble, all the mischievous things that he does.
Okay.
In the creation story, part of the story is that I mentioned that the grandmother dies. And I'm not too clear on this, but I believe the twin the mischievous one, cuts off her head and throws it in the sky. But her head is what is up there now. And because it's the twin, the nighttime twin that threw it up, he threw his grandmother up to take care of the nighttime sky. Now, the other twin, when it was his time to pass, he went beyond the grandmother, and he became the son. So the son is who we call our brother, the older brother, and we also call him which means the great warrior. And the moon, we refer to our grandmother. So the relationship of our immediate planet is our mother is the earth, our grandmother is the moon, and our brother or elder brother is the sun.
So what about the concept of other stars or constellations or planets? Are they referring to...
Well, they've been called different things, like Pleiades. Certain time of the year, Pleiades is directly overhead. And there were, again, I'm not too clear on the story, but they're also called the seven dancers in our culture. They're called the seven dancers because there were seven young men, boys actually, who danced, and they danced so long that they went up to the sky, and that's how that constellation formed, the seven brothers. And there are other stories about the sky that are similar, in that there are stories that tells how the different constellations were formed.
So actually the concept is that there's some kind of a transformation.
Yes.
Transformation of beings to become into the stars, for example. This is quite interesting because there was just when I left Finland, there was a program in a very famous scientific place, which is called Heureka, where there's all kind of scientific exhibitions and all, and it was about stars. It was especially about the Orion, this constellation of Orion. And the last words were that nobody actually knows what stars are. That was a question. But he explained about the nature of stars and all. But the last thing was that nobody actually knows what a star is, how it is born, and what it is. And maybe there's some kind of a bridge, what we don't really know yet. But this is actually the same thing also around the world, that there are concepts that the body and the beings change into subtle ones, and then they become pure consciousness, and that takes a form of some star or constellation, and it's just radiating pure energy or something. But I think for now this is in a way enough, because we're not doing all the stories and all. And if you would just maybe, if you would like to say that you are willing to help us to do and maybe introduce to your wise men for this purpose.
Oh, I think there are plenty of people who can tell you the whole story in depth and with a lot of explanation into the common sense of it. along with the relation of the story itself, to show what is the real meaning of it. I know of a good person that can do that. There are plenty of people that can tell the stories.
And you think that they would be willing to cooperate with us?
Well, I would hope so, yeah. Might have to travel to Toronto or someplace.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes.
Mm.
There's something else that I was wanting to ask you still. Yes, maybe briefly, because I was talking with the young guys, and especially because this time seems to be, especially this time, and why, for example, we are doing this documentary is again because of a special kind of a time. As you know, that your spirituality is waking up, the political situation is changing, the whole world is changing, and in every culture there seems to be quite a major change. So would you comment shortly about this time, and how you as a native people know the significance and importance of this time now? What does it mean to you?
Well, I think it's... I've heard stories for quite a while that Western society or European societies would finally look toward the native people's philosophy about the environment and about spirituality as the way toward saving the earth and creating peace amongst the earth. But they're really struggling. They're really struggling with that because they're not prepared to deny what they've been led to believe for centuries, so that they can't throw off the yoke of a supreme being, let's put it that way, a wrathful God, a vengeful God, vengeance is mine, said the Lord. And in our culture, we don't have a vengeful God. We don't have hell. I mean, hell is what you make of it here. It's our job not to make a hell out of this place. So that's what we're taught, is that it's our job to make peace. But at the same time, we just can't allow anyone to subjugate us, because we're not born to that state of being. We're born free. And the Europeans were took a long time to accept that. Finally, as far as the idea of democracy and freedom is concerned, they learned most of it from the native people here.
What does the concept of freedom actually mean? What is freedom of man?
You'll find in our communities that the regimented white society looks at our communities and sees chaos. I mean, they see people that do whatever the hell they want. But at the same time, they can't understand how we can be so well organized that we would create a situation that occurred in 1990, for instance, when everybody worked together and showed a common effort with very little preparation, with no preparation whatsoever. And that we had a common interest, and that was, everyone has a common interest in the land. And everyone has a common interest in our freedom. And the freedom means, in our case, that we're free to do whatever we see fit to do to make a living, to create a life for ourselves. But at the same time, we have to adhere to certain responsibilities to each other. And those responsibilities have been laid out for us by the great law.
One of them being protection of family and home.
But we don't, and we certainly do not want any other government telling us how to live our lives. So this is what the Europeans saw, and we showed them equality between men and women, and the power that the women had in our societies, and we showed that to the colonists that were here, and they discussed that and brought it back to Europe, and they discussed that over there, and John Locke discussed that in Europe, and all these Voltaire and all these people discussed that. All of a sudden, it was a European idea that they brought back here, and they said they brought democracy to the United States, whereas it was the other way around. They learned it from us.
What is the name for the, I think it sounds something like Guyana Law?
It's the great law.
The Great Law. And the Constitution of the United States was directly lifted from that.
Very much
Great
so.
law.
Yeah, this is one of the aspects of the film actually that I was really wanting to mention. It's quite general knowledge, but in some beautiful way that the Iroquois Federacy and this were the actual foundation of a democratic idea completely. This is why I'm asking about these things. I think this is enough in this sense for this purpose. And then if we get the money, we'll go deeper into all these things and in a more profound way.
Yeah.
Thank you anyway very much. Thank you.
Toi Martikki, siis lapset olisi musta hyvä ottaa tuohon vielä.